I was a neglectful father when my daughter was little, now she has abandoned me at home alone. I feel like dying. I, 59, have a daughter, 24, named Jen. Growing up, I worked a lot and missed out on school events, meetings, etc. I also had a stressful job I hated and anger issues back then, so Jen and I were rocky for the first 18 years. Jen went out of state for college and never spoke to me, not even if I offered to pay for books or rent or anything. When she visited for holidays, she stayed with my ex-wife and her new husband. Jen came back to our city for work last year and started law school last month. My ex-wife and Jen are still very close, but my ex is remarried and is currently taking care of her husband's elderly father, who lives with them. So Jen has to live with me as she is unable to work this year due to starting law school. She pays for her own groceries. We have different tastes and utilities. I don't need the money, but she insisted. She is cordial with me, but we don't interact like father and daughter should. We're like strained roommates. Some issues we have are: Jen wears sweatpants and t-shirts to school. I nicely offered to take her shopping for some smart suits, skirts, blouses, etc. so she could fit in. She said no and continued to dress like a slob every day for class. I don't know much about lawyers, but I'm pretty sure you can't wear sweatpants to court. I noticed Jen makes herself an omelet every day, so I started making omelets for her before she gets up so she doesn't need to burden herself. But she says she doesn't like my omelets and asks me to stop cooking for her. This hurt me greatly as she used to beg for my omelets when she was little. Jen comes home after 8 p.m. every single day. She tells me she is studying at the school or going to the gym, but now that the days are getting darker earlier she needs to be home earlier because I worry about her getting into an accident or worse. She has a desk in her room and can study here. So take into account all these issues we are having. And then last Friday, 10/21, she came home at 9 p.m. when it was pitch black and says she was at the bar with some classmates. No text from her, no call, nothing, and she wasn't even studying. I tried to have a calm conversation with her about my concerns, but she yelled at me that she's allowed to socialize with her peers after midterm exams. I understand this, but school comes first, not drinks, and she should have let me know what she was doing. Jen then grabbed her keys and tried to leave, but I held my ground in front of the door, begging her not to drive drunk and in the dark. She ended up just going to her room for the night. We didn't speak all weekend and she continues to come home after dark every night. I'm very concerned for my daughter and I'm worried law school may be too hard on her. However, I don't want to have another blow up with her like we did on Friday. Update: since the big blow up last Friday, when I caught her coming home drunk and admonished her accordingly, we continue to tiptoe around each other. I have knocked on her door a few times around bedtime to see if we can talk, but she doesn't answer and has locked the door so I can't enter her bedroom. She now leaves for class before I get up and comes home around 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. sometimes. I greet her every evening as I am unable to go to sleep if she isn't home. I no longer enforce a curfew, but she just blows past me into her room. If she cooks for herself, it's when I'm sleeping or at work. I can't keep living like this. She's like a stranger to me. We used to get along when she was a little girl, then around 13 to 14 years old, she became horrible to me. Wouldn't let me hug her or kiss her. One time she even screamed at me because I put some food on her plate during dinner. I acknowledge my previous faults and failures as a father, but I attended therapy during my divorce and only stopped because of the pandemic. She is still holding on to past impressions of me, and I'm worried that she will not see that I have changed and am trying to do better. This morning I intercepted her while she was eating breakfast before class. I tried to strike up a conversation with her and she just ignored me on her phone. The old me would have taken her phone and thrown it at the wall. As I said, I had previous faults, but I successfully restrained myself and let her be. I no longer make her omelets, but I put out bowls of fruit for her which she never touches. Update 2. After a cold war that lasted over a week, I decided I had enough and waited for her outside her bedroom. She eventually came out and I asked if we could talk. I first told her that I was sorry for treating her like a child when she is a capable adult in graduate school. I then told her if she can't treat me like a daughter should treat a father, we would need to look into getting her to move out and find a roommate as she wouldn't be able to stay with me anymore. I ended by saying I would not be ignored in my own house, as a commenter on my previous post pointed out. She was quiet but then said okay sure. Sorry dad. I opened my arms for a hug, but she pushed past me. I admit the hug was a little optimistic on my part, but I understand she needs time, and I didn't press it. We're now on speaking terms again. We say good mornings and good nights, which is better than it has been this past week. In return, I have stopped cooking for her altogether, and I no longer expect her home at a certain hour. She texts me when she's heading home, which I consider a win. I have vowed to be a better father to her, which I hope she is seeing. I'm hopeful about the future. Update 3. Things have been better since we spoke earlier this week, but Jen is still awkward around me, despite my apologizing for my recent behavior. I feel that an incident this morning has stunted any improvement in our relationship. So around 9 a.m., she starts making breakfast in the kitchen. I come out and we chat for a bit. She has class at 11 today. I see she has the kettle going and next to it is a cup with a tea bag in it. Since she is busy cooking, I go to the fridge, get the milk, and pour some into the bottom of her cup to take an extra step off her hands. Simple, right? Well, she gets an attitude with me, says she likes to put the hot water over the tea bag, let it sit for a few minutes, and then add milk and sugar. When I try to explain the convenience, she cuts me off and says it won't taste good, and adding milk before the hot water is going to mess with this super sacred tea making process. I think this is absolute horse tea and that she wants to pick a fight with me. For the first time in a long time, I snapped at her and said okay, you don't want me to cook for you. Tell me what kid doesn't want to wake up or come home to a hot meal. You don't want me to help you make tea. You don't want anything from me except a place to live. She said yes, that is correct. I sat in the kitchen in silence while she finished cooking, ate, and cleaned up. She also made a show of emptying out the cup I had prepared for her and getting a new cup and making tea her way. I was still in the kitchen when she left for class, and she said absolutely nothing to me, even though I was hinting that she owed me an apology. So here I am typing my thoughts about the morning's events. I think I want to ask her to move out. but I need to have a valid reason to do so or I'll be the bad guy in everyone's eyes. Please let me know if it looks like she is indeed taking advantage of living with me, and if this is the case, when should I tell her to move out? If I do seem like I'm blowing this out of proportion, I also need to hear this as well. Update 4. I don't know where the time goes. When your daughters are young, all they want to do is hug you and kiss you and crawl on top of you. I used to beg her for personal space. Then the teenage years hit and they want nothing to do with you. Ah, what a fool I was. I didn't appreciate her affection. My daughter, Jen, who is in law school, came to me on Saturday and told me she would be moving out this upcoming weekend, right before Thanksgiving. I naturally had a million questions. Mainly, where is she moving to? And with who? Jen has always been secretive about her life. She said she was moving in with her boyfriend. My jaw about hit the floor. I had never known that Jen had a boyfriend. I asked how long she had been seeing this guy. She said almost 3 years. They met at college and started dating. He's a year older than her and works in the city. His apartment is located closer to her school. I wanted to vomit. First of all, I had no idea she was even interested in dating. In high school for dances and events, she never went with a date, always a group of friends. I would often ask her if she was dating anyone, and she'd just roll her eyes and look disgusted. I guess I just stopped asking after a while. I asked her when I could meet her boyfriend. Let's call him Dan. She said he would come by this weekend to help her move. I said she wasn't going to move in with someone I have never met. She said good luck trying to stop her. Is that a challenge, Jen? I asked how she would be paying for this apartment. The city we live in isn't cheap. That's why I live in the suburbs. She said Dan's family owns the apartment. They own a few different properties, and that her and Dan would split expenses and utilities. She worked throughout college and for a year after college, but I didn't think she made that much money. I don't know this guy. She wouldn't even give me a last name. I thought about calling my ex to see if she knew about this, but to be honest, I don't think I could bear her telling me she knows about Dan while I've just found out about this. I'm also embarrassed to say that I'm just not comfortable of her moving in with a boyfriend. My daughter, despite wanting to be a lawyer, is not the brightest bulb. She was a solid B student in middle and high school, and to my knowledge, she was never on any honor roll in college. In other words, she's not very smart and I don't think she's making the right decision here. However, I'm trying to take previous advice and not just jump the gun and ambush her into staying here. The other thing that really bugs me is I asked her if she would be coming back for Thanksgiving. She said no, she'd be spending it with Dan's family because I have never shown an interest in Thanksgiving. And this was the first she was hearing about any Thanksgiving Day plans of mine. I mean, she's right, I'm not really a holiday guy, but I could have bought a turkey and sides from a restaurant if it meant that much to her. To be honest, I don't really know what she does as we haven't spent Thanksgiving together since the divorce, but I am interested in starting a new tradition with her if it makes her happy. I followed her to her room and asked if she would reconsider moving out in a year or so, only when she's more financially and socially secure. She looked at me kind of sideways and said no, then shut the door in my face. I am absolutely flabbergasted. I know I mentioned wanting her to leave in my last post, but I didn't mean so soon. It seems like my daughter is slipping out of my fingers as I speak. I'm not sure what to do or if it's worth even talking to her. How am I supposed to deal with this? Update 5. I woke up this morning to an empty house. I stopped by the room that my daughter Jen lived in until recently. She didn't take much, but it still looks so different. She moved out on Saturday, put some boxes and her suitcases near the front door. I sat at the kitchen table waiting for her boyfriend, Dan, who I've never met, show up so we could talk properly. He did show up. He introduced himself, shook my hand, and then completely ignored me as he helped Jen move her things to his car outside. I remained at the table, staring him down, so he would know that he was behaving inappropriately. He and Jen both ignored me. It took maybe 15 minutes to get all of her things. Jen finally approached me and said she was leaving, left her keys on the table. I said she would need them to come back, and she said verbatim, "I'm not coming back." The emotions began to rise then. I felt unsteady as I stood up and opened my arms for a hug, as I had been doing for her entire life. She used to see me open my arms and run in for a hug, knocking the wind from me. She just backed away and held her hand out instead. A handshake. From my own daughter. I've never been so hurt in my life. I walked both of them out. I said I'd be here alone on Thanksgiving unless she chooses to come. I said I would get her a pumpkin pie if she came. She said she wouldn't be, didn't I remember? She was spending it with Dan and his family. So I guess that hasn't changed. I decided now was my chance and I told Dan to take care of my daughter and treat her with respect. He gave me the smuggest little smile and said of course he would. I wanted to smack him in the face. I hope he feels good knowing he has manipulated my daughter into leaving her own father's home alone. I guarantee things would have been different if he wasn't around. Jen then asked if she could come by and get her desk and chair next week when they had more room in the car. I said I was going to burn her desk the minute she left. Dan said in the most smart-ass way possible, "Don't worry, I'll get you a better desk." Jen simply shrugged and then left with him. I watched them drive away, then the tears came. I cried all afternoon and a little more yesterday morning. I felt so alone. I used to wait to hear her footsteps in the kitchen and know it was time to get up. Now I feel no reason to leave my bed or even cook for myself. I sat in front of the TV with nothing playing for a good hour. My daughter has abandoned me. I feel no reason to even live. I took work off today because I keep tearing up at random times and knew I wouldn't be able to concentrate. Parents who have had their kids move out, how do you cope? I texted her this morning and she didn't respond. I don't want to overwhelm her and her new life, as there is clearly no room in it for me, but I need to talk to my daughter again and apologize. Update 6. I've been busy. I started therapy, at the recommendation of a lot of commenters, and I've gone to 3 sessions so far. I don't know if anything has really changed, but I am desperate for a relationship with my daughter Jen. I spent a lonely Thanksgiving by myself. The morning of I sent Jen one last text inviting her over, but she never responded. I called the number and got her voicemail, so I knew her phone was working. I was in a dark place for a while. I'm still not happy with her living with her boyfriend, but I've chosen to let this go for now, despite the disrespect he showed me when they moved her stuff out of my house. She is free to make her own mistakes, as people on Reddit pointed out. I've texted her about once a day since she left, usually just a hi or a love you or even sometimes sometimes just a smiley face emoji to know I've been thinking about her. I didn't expect her to always respond, but she hasn't even responded to one text. Until today, my therapist suggested asking her and her boyfriend Dan over for Christmas. I really don't want Dan back into my house, but I need to see Jen. So I hemmed and hawed and decided I'd make that sacrifice. So I texted her this morning with an invite extended to both her and Dan. She responded about an hour ago that she and Dan would be spending Christmas in Mexico and wouldn't be back until the new year. I immediately tried to call her, but she didn't answer. I texted her that sounded like an expensive trip that she couldn't afford and that she should take her winter break to prepare for the next semester. She didn't respond, so I panicked and told her if she went I would call the cops and have Dan arrested for kidnapping. After I sent this, I immediately felt regret and shame, so I sent her an apology text that I didn't mean what I said. I'm just worried she's not being safe, and 8 days in Mexico is a long time. She hasn't responded to my apology yet. I'm worried I blew my chance at getting back together with her for the holidays. I don't know if I can do another holiday by myself, especially with seeing families come together and enjoy themselves.